Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome back to your lounge. We are back in the Latte Lounge today, and the Latte Lounge or your lounge is a community for women in business. So in here we look to release our extraordinary, and we do that through connecting and supporting one another through the juggling act of life, which I'm sure we can all relate to, being in business as women. And we collaborate in business, we learn and develop both personally and professionally. So it's a great little space for you to come into. It's a free membership, so come on in, and would love to have you in there. The link is below. So see you in there. And today we are broadcasting this outside of your lounge, so you're very lucky to be hearing this. We have Health and Vitality Month this month in your lounge, so really helping women in business to prioritize their health and their vitality, because it is such a big part of our success in business and showing up to be our best, the best version of ourselves, and supporting our staff, supporting our team, and just being the best we can be. So this month we've already chatted with Louise on burnout. We've chatted with Alyssa and Lorraine on exercise and moving and cellular health. And so today we are really looking forward to talking to Beck. Beck is we're going to talk about hormonal balance and metabolism and the changes that we might experience as women, particularly at certain ages, I guess, in our life, and how that might affect our energy. Some days we might, or some periods of life, we might just be showing up just knowing that we're not our full self, our best self. Our brains are foggy and all sorts of things which really affect us. So hormones are another part of being a woman. and metabolism, yes, well, that does tend to slow down a bit, doesn't it? I think. So we're going to talk to Beck and introduce Beck into the studio. So Beck is a multi-talented health professional. She excels in nutrition, fitness training, and yoga instruction. And with 25 years of experience in the fitness industry, Beck started her journey in 1998. And she's never stopped learning. She specializes in digestive health, particularly in the microbiome, and helps individuals with various conditions, including endometriosis, autoimmune disorders, and mental health concerns. So they're all fairly, big things, I think, in our world today. Beck has a signature program called 12 Weeks to Wow, which I'm sure she'll mention. And this combines personalized nutrition with resistance training, yoga, and it does deliver transformative results. So as a lifelong learner, Beck constantly seeks evidence-based information, which I think is really important to empower, particularly women over 40, to enhance their health. So I know Beck does work with all kinds of people, but she does specialize in that sort of zone of women over 40. So also known as the posture queen, she emphasizes the importance of posture and self-care in achieving optimal well-being. So it's, with great pleasure and excitement that I get to welcome Beck into the studio today. And let me just bring you in, Beck. There we are. Hey, Beck, how are you going?
Great. Good morning, or good afternoon now, actually. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me to come and share a few thoughts. And that was quite an opening for me. Like I feel like I should be like clapping. That's me. Wow.
It's funny.
Thank you for that.
It's funny when you hear yourself being introduced, isn't it? It's like, oh my goodness, is that really me?
Yes, exactly right. So that was a very generous introduction. Thank you. Looking forward to having a chat.
Yeah, that's okay. So we're really interested to chat with you more on metabolism and hormone changes and things like that. So I guess, like, with what you do and people you work with, what do you see as some of the main changes that might occur for women in their 40s and beyond? I mean, we've already talked about why it's important to address it, and maybe some of the things that, or actually you could mention that as well, some of the things that people are noticing in themselves. It's particularly 40 and above, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, and to be honest, that's the main group of people I look after now, women over 40. So I guess, the elephant in the room that we sort of hear about, but maybe like I'm honestly still shocked with the number of patients in their early 40s that come to see me and they report a certain set of symptoms, which I will cover in a minute. And when I say the word perimenopause to them, they're shocked. So that
Mm,
says to me that there's actually still a significant amount of or a lack of health literacy for women in their late 30s as they're heading into their 40s to understand that menopause, like the average age of menopause is 51, and perimenopause can start 12 years before. So if we cycle that back,
mm.
that's 39,
It's
right?
crazy, isn't it? I
So
mean, I must admit, I would have been one of those, a bit shocked. Like what?
But that's what I mean. It's like there's
Yeah.
a whole generation of women that are heading into their 40s. They are illiterate when it comes to the whole concept of menopause, understanding that perimenopause and menopause are kind of that whole picture. And it occurs over 12 years of our lives, often when we're at our busiest, right? So it's like I kind of see the 40s as being the time where women are often starting businesses, they're deep in business, they're deep in career, they potentially have family that are still quite needy at either end of the spectrum, so either small children or aging parents. And there's a real juggle on the demands on them, and they're actually flailing. Like everything is starting to decline, but the external demands are really ramping up. So I think
Mm.
perimenopause is probably, and the list of symptoms, and I've written them down because I have my own meno moments, and so I don't forget anything. But they're common things that probably as people are listening, we can all relate to them, right? So it is in relation to hormonal changes, which are predominantly estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. They're the main ones. And then they feed into other hormones that we would have heard of, like cortisol and insulin, which can be responsible for the spare tire that we start accumulating in our 40s. So they all kind of work together. And the thing with perimenopause is that it's not one linear decline, it's a wave. So
Oh,
1 month you'll have a lot of hormone, and then the next month, because maybe you don't ovulate, your progesterone and your estrogen are quite low. And so we're sort of trying to deal with this seesaw of perimenopause. This can go on like this for years, and it is responsible for the symptoms that we experience. So weight gain is
mm,
one that drives almost all of the women that I see primarily reach out because they've got uncontrolled weight gain, and the things that they used to do don't work anymore. So that's
yeah,
number one. But then
yeah.
the other lot of symptoms are irritability and mood changes are big, like everything's irritating them and they just feel constantly on edge. Mood changes, which can include anxiety and depressive type symptoms.
I mean, it can feel like
Fatigue.
probably like you can probably be in these moments where you feel like there's actually something wrong with you, you don't know what, because
And
you don't understand it. You feel like there's something.
exactly, 100%. That's exactly the kinds of words that people would use.
Mm.
Even body aches and pains, people are like, I'm just getting old. What's wrong with me? Um, and one thing that I've been hearing a lot lately that I think a lot of women might relate to, and honestly, I had this experience myself, was women in careers that require a high level of cognitive function, that their brains need to be working, start to wonder if they actually can do the work they're doing anymore. This is really common. I've had this experience myself because some of the patients that I have, the kind of biochemistry that I'm trying to problem solve, or I'm trying to problem solve an issue, actually requires my brain to be in tip top working order. And there were honestly moments where I was like, I can't even think this thing through. I can't problem solve. I don't know what is wrong with my brain. These are the kind of things that people will report. And it's upsetting to them. They feel out of control. plus the fact they're utterly exhausted. And I end up with people turning up to me just being like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm at the end of my tether. They are frustrated. They're exhausted. They haven't had any help from traditional medical sources. This is the other problem. Like, people are going to see their doctors, and their doctors might do some blood tests and they get the standard, you're fine. And they're like, no, I'm crawling out of your office. I feel like crying all of the time. My brain no longer works. They might be experiencing hot flushes as well. That hasn't been really a big part of my journey. But the other really interesting thing is another thing happens during this 40s to 50s, thyropause. Now, this is a word a lot of people won't have heard of, but it's basically a decline in thyroid function that is directly related to the hormonal changes. So, I sort of start sharing this with people and they're like, okay, well, is there any good news?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, actually, there is, because if we can learn how to manage that stuff, we are coming into the best time of our lives. We are casting off all of the shadows of our youth where we cared about what people thought of us. We don't care about that stuff anymore. And this is the best season of our lives. Our kids are getting older. We are feeling more confident in who we are, and we can present a version of ourselves and go out and serve people in a way that I think we haven't been able to be able to do before. So to be honest, I would say perimenopause in the kind of late 30s, entire 40s, and then transitioning into menopause in our 50s, that is the biggest overriding thing that is happening from a health point of view for women. And it shows up in different body systems in the body. Like, people will complain of different things.
And obviously
all roads lead to perimenopause.
Yeah. And obviously some people are affected more than others too, right?
Of course they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And
of course they are.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's
But I
really
think, honestly, if you speak to any women in their 40s, there would be very few women, unless they're already doing, they're already on top of this stuff, and that they've put some things into place in their lives, and they're health literate. Maybe they've got some people helping them. If you discard those people, almost everybody else will be like, oh yeah, I'm exhausted, I'm cranky, I'm yelling at everybody more, I'm tired, I need to go to bed earlier. My memory, they'll be talking about the memory and the cognitive impairment. The weight gain is a big one, because it affects people's confidence, and I've had both, honestly, in the last 7 days, I've had both of those comments. Number one, the one around people feeling like, I actually don't think I can work anymore. I don't think I can do this high level job because I'm not with it. And the second one, people crying, honestly, about the confidence issues that they're feeling because of the weight gain and the fact they can't fit into anything in their wardrobes. And it sucks.
Yeah.
So it's a common problem.
Yeah. The weight gain is obviously a big one as well. And I was going to mention that, like, obviously that's one that a lot of us can relate to, but it's also not the only thing. Like, there's all those other things that you mentioned. So some people might not be necessarily being affected by the weight issue, but they are having some of these other symptoms. So yeah, and it's huge if you're running a business and you've got this going on, and it's such a big chunk of our life, isn't it? Like, from late 30s to 51, it's a big chunk. Like, you want to be at your optimal, especially if you're trying to build a business. So which is why we thought we'd chat about this today. And so, Beck, I'm sure you have 1,000,001 strategies, but what would be some of your key strategies that you talk to women about all the time that they can easily implement?
So I'm gonna dot point them, and then if there's anything you want to flesh out, you can then ask me more questions. But number one is prioritize yourself. Put on your own oxygen mask first, or you can't serve anybody. And this, again, is one I literally am coaching my women in this every single week, because it's, women in our age group are traditionally quite harsh on ourselves. We are, we do feel responsible for everything. And so we will run ourselves into the ground. And the amount of women I talk to that feel guilty about doing actually what is honestly, to me, the most rudimentary level of care, which is actually just making sure you're healthy enough to live. That's a very essential level. But that you deserve to thrive. Honestly, even when I say those kind of things to women, like I say, you deserve to thrive, not just survive. That will be enough to get them to start tearing up. Like it's big stuff. So prioritizing yourself. Otherwise, and again, this really connects with the women I serve. Like, do you love all of these people in your life so much, but you are showing up as the worst version of yourself? And you can't serve them in the way that you want to. You can't care for your kids. You can't set an example if you are always putting yourself last and you're crabby and angry all the time because everyone's taking stuff from you, but you are not taking responsibility for putting yourself first. And I do this exceptionally well. And when I tell people some of the things I do, they're like, oh, like sometimes I'll go out and do a yoga class while everybody stays home and has dinner. And they're like, what do you mean? That's the time that is available for me to do that. If I don't do it at that time, I miss it. And then I am a crabby person. So it's better for everybody. And everybody will live. I am not the center of the world. You all can do some stuff on your own. So it's breaking down.
I think that's the thing with that. I think sometimes we think like it's just us and we're the only one that notices, what's happening, in those moments where we're just not our best. But it really does change the environment around us so significantly.
Of course it does.
For all of the people that we're around. So it is really important to put ourselves.
And it sends a message when you put yourself first and you start doing things for yourself. It's not that everyone else is missing out, but you're actually elevating yourself to at least the same as everyone else. It sends a message about value and how much you value yourself. That is a message to your kids, and it honestly has an impact as they go out into life about how they're going to be. So honestly, that's my number one. Number two is self-care, which is a very close second. Number one is around health, prioritizing your health, seeking help. Number two, self-care. Go and do things that are fun and nourishing to your soul. Like life is not meant to be a drudgery of work and making dinner for people and then falling into bed and then getting up in the morning and doing it all again and then collapsing into the weekend where you try and recover. Self-care is not just getting a massage, but honestly, in our age group, it's actually making sure that you're going out with your friends on your own. And being you, like be yourself without all the hats that you're wearing, the mother, the wife, the carer, the business owner, the whatever. Just go out and have fun. It honestly goes a long way to optimizing your health.
Yeah, we all need that reminder. I think daily almost, like really, like the fun can just sometimes disappear, can't it? Well, standing there at night doing the dishes, making lunches and for the next day and thinking about all the work that you've got to do. And it's just like, it feels so heavy, but it's so important.
Yeah. And dealing with your exhaustion from perimenopause while you're doing that and then just getting up and doing it all again. Like we can whittle away our lives just doing the stuff. Number three is get help if you need it. It is a false economy to Google search the solution that you're looking for, only to come up with like 2 gazillion results and literally spend hours trying to wade through a sea of contradictory information. If you need help, go and get it, pay for it, but find a person that you resonate with. And you can do that. You can research, but get that person that is the one that you need help from. Go and get the help. It's not worth all the time and mental real estate that it takes up trying to solve problems yourself. Then it's just back to back. Number one, sleep. You have to prioritize your sleep. I have written a whole blog post on this, which I will send you a link that people can access. And these are all things that I individually flesh out in my 12-week program because they are so critical to outcomes that to not address them as individual elements is, poor sleep, means you're not recovering, means your insulin is elevated, which equals you can't lose weight. So if you're not prioritizing your sleep, you can't lose weight. If that's a goal, it's not going to happen. And all of that kind of restoration that happens, you can't replace sleep with any supplement. Stress management is one that women over 40 do really poorly. That's a whole subject I would talk about for 20 minutes on what people need to do for that. Obviously, nutrition. And I've given a few tips at the bottom, so I'll dive into that in a minute. Exercise goes without saying. Honestly, you need to move your body 6 days a week for at least 30 minutes. And that's me understating things. We have to move. You cannot feel well when your body is stiff, sore, tight, weak. Have to move. Get outdoors. We need sun, and it's not just the vitamin D, but it's the light exposure to our brain and how imperative that is in setting circadian rhythms and just breathing in air and being immersed in nature. You know, what that does from an energetic point of view is profound. And breathing. I do a whole session, and I teach a breath practice in my program because breathing is everything. It down regulates our cortisol. When we breathe deeply, all fat metabolism, who knew the byproducts of fat metabolism, we breathe out. So if you're only breathing, here's a top tip. You want to lose weight. If you're not breathing deeply, you will be decreasing your weight loss capacity. So who knew? Wow. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's such a simple thing, isn't it? But we just stop and, you know, I mean, we all know it's good for us, but when you say something so technical and, you know, scientific like that, it does make us really get it, you know, something sinks in.
And it stops that whole cortisol cascade that happens. You know, when we feel stressed and we feel anxious, something has triggered us. And then there's that whole chemical cascade and we experience that with the feelings, the breathlessness, the tightness in our body. Sometimes we'll feel heat in our body when we're stressed and anxious. Breath is free, and it literally counterbalances that completely. Because once you are focusing on breathing deeply into your belly and expanding through your ribs, you can't be going down that anxiety pothole any longer. And it can just break that whole pattern. And again, I could talk for half an hour about breath, but it is, you know, just a simple breath practice and utilizing it in those moments where you feel overwhelmed. Do it and observe how it changes the state that you're in. And the other thing is, when you're overwhelmed, your brain doesn't work properly. Everyone will have experienced that.
Oh gosh, yes.
So fight or flight versus rest and digest. So if you can bring yourself back into that parasympathetic state, then your brain will come back online. When you're stuck in fight or flight, you can't think. And so if you're at a presentation, that's going to be very awkward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I must admit, that's the first thing I say to my kids as well when they're in this, you know, especially my now teenager, you know, when she's stressed and having a, you know, mental fit, you know, it's like, just calm down, breathe. You know, we probably say it to others, but maybe we don't take it on ourselves as much as we can. Yeah.
I think that's true.
Definitely. Wow, there's so many tips there. There's so many. It's like, wow, yeah, which one do you start with? But little steps, I think.
I've got a few. So you asked me the question around, do I have some quick tips? So if you want me to cover those, I'll just dot point them. Number one is hydration. Most women are not drinking probably even a third of the amount of water that they should be. And you can't replace it with caffeine or anything else. So up-level hydration. And one of the things that I talk about is that if the water is not being absorbed into your cells, and that's its place of business, like it's part of the metabolic process, you will be running to the toilet constantly. So sip the water, don't guzzle like a cup really quickly and then don't drink for 2 hours, because your body will seek to restore homeostasis. It will shift all of that water on. And then you want to be making sure that you're consuming adequate salt or electrolytes. And I personally do both and recommend both to my patients. And electrolytes, don't buy some rubbish product that's full of additives. I personally prescribe a practitioner blend because it doesn't have any rubbish in it, just the pure electrolytes. But find a good quality electrolyte. You don't have to have it every day, but a good quality salt will also do the job, like a
Okay.
Himalayan rock salt
Okay.
or a sea salt, something like that, that's mineralized. A little bit of salt either on your food or, have a little lick when you're drinking, like maybe every half a liter of water, have a little bit of salt or electrolytes to make sure you're actually absorbing that water. And hydration's imperative for everything.
Sorry about that. My phone must have been on silent.
So it's important for cognitive function. If you're dehydrated, your brain won't work. But again, we circle back to weight loss. If you're dehydrated, you will not shift weight.
No. So the salt helps with that too, right?
The salt helps you hydrate because it's actually absorbing the water into the cells rather than it just shifting its way out of your body. The second one is protein.
Because a lot of weight loss programs or programs around that say to minimize, your salt, like not have as much, I've found.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the confusion around that is that they'll really be talking about sodium. So most of the salts that you'll buy at the supermarket are very high in sodium, and sodium is indicated in, water retention and high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. But a good quality salt is actually relatively low in sodium and essential to health. And so it's one of those unfortunate ones where that sort of broad message has left people depleted, right? Because I've gone, I can't have any salt, I'm scared of it. No, it's the rubbish salt that we buy, the Saxa, for want of a better name, the Saxa table salt from the 70s. The second thing that I wanted to cover was protein. So almost everybody is not eating enough protein. So prioritize protein. At the bottom end of the spectrum, kind of 1.2 grams per kilo of body weight is what you want to look at. And that's being really, that's me being quite sensible. If you're training a lot, you probably want to be pumping it up to 1.6 to 1.8 grams of protein per kilo, but minimum 1.2, and then split it across your meals. So make sure that every meal you're getting a good amount of protein, because again, most of the women I see, they're not eating enough protein for breakfast and lunch, and they're then starving in the afternoon, and then it causes that grazing after dinner. So if you get more protein at the front end of your day, it will regulate your blood sugar more, your brain will work better, and you won't be running to the fridge looking for all those carbohydrate-y snacks.
Yes, I have experienced that myself. Yeah, definitely. Protein first thing in the morning is the best.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, it helps to stabilize everything, and it sends a message of safety to your brain, like, so we're good. We've got what we need here. Not these kind of blood sugar spikes where the brain starts to panic. Oh my gosh, we need food, and we're running for more snacks at like 10:30. Which leads me to my final tip is, and this is a little bit controversial, avoid snacking. If you want to lose weight,
I can't wait to
avoid
talk to you
snacking.
about this one. Yeah, right.
The reason is, well, firstly, if you're eating a balanced meal, that's got protein, carbohydrate, fat in it, then you should be satiated for 4 to 5 hours. If you're getting breakthrough hunger, you have to question it. Is it true hunger? And if it is, it's a blood sugar issue, which means the combo of that first meal wasn't up to scratch. If it's not true hunger, then really what we're looking for is we're either bored or our brain is screaming out for a dopamine hit, and we're eating for that as opposed to that physiological experience of hunger. So snacking keeps your insulin at a constantly high level. And if your insulin is elevated, you cannot burn fat.
Yeah, wow. So do you agree with having a piece of fruit or anything like that in between, meals? Nothing at all, even if it's like,
because you're breaking that period of fasting. The other element to that, which most people won't understand, is that in between meals, there's a thing that happens in our digestive system called the cleansing wave. And after a couple of hours, as that food's kind of moved its way through, the brain instigates this kind of a movement to clear all bacteria out that shouldn't be there. It's almost like a shaking of the tree. Everybody out, we're cleaning up now. If you're constantly eating, that cleansing wave never gets to happen. So people that have got a lot of those upper digestive system upsets or conditions like SIBO, they're often because of the constant snacking, and that cleansing wave never gets to come in and do its job. And so we have been perfectly designed. We are an extremely complex unit. And often the ways that we're dealing with this unit is really not producing the kind of outcomes that we want. So kill the snacking, people.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I've often said to myself, and I constantly have to remind myself, because I love something a bit sweet, as a lot of us would. And I think to myself, a little bit of sugar or a little bit of something that's sweet, it doesn't have a lot of, maybe it doesn't have a lot of calories, but I think if I'm right, based on what you're saying, is that sugar going into mixing up with the chemical, I don't know, well, let's call it a chemical reaction in the body, is not making things work properly. And so
so you're getting that insulin spike. Like as soon as you eat that little treaty, the biscuit or whatever, it might only be 100 calories, but 100 calories of that little biscuit versus 100 calories of an apple is going to produce a very different insulin response, right? And look, some people, if you've always been a snacker, it's a conversation about how you transition away from that. Like people just stopping their snacking is not the right approach because they will suffer. You have to make sure you look back at the meals that you're consuming and that they're actually adequate for you, because otherwise you're going to be just white knuckling it through not snacking, and you'll be grumpy and irritable because your brain doesn't have adequate glucose. Everything's a transition. So I think that's a really important thing to say. Any changes that you're making, particularly based on things that I might say to you today, you might have to integrate those things over time. We don't have to go from doing one thing to like reinventing the wheel the day after. Okay. It's like we've got to listen to our bodies. And if you've got to go and deliver a big presentation and you've decided that that's the day you're going to cut out your snacking, that may not be the best approach. You'll be up on stage, you'll be throwing things at people, you'll be grumpy. It might just be you start with a replacement snack. You choose a low glycemic index snack like an apple as opposed to the biscuit. And then you slowly, lengthen the time in between your meals and make each meal whole and complete on its own.
Yeah, so much to discuss. And then lastly, I guess, do you have one or two top tips? Because I know as busy, women in business and you're just the same. I know how much you have on in a day. Like, what would be a tip, one or two quick tips that you could say, for eating on the go, like just eating well on the go?
So I would say, like, again, coming back to prioritizing protein. So just considering, it might be that you need to take something with you. If you're going to be out and about and you want to be sort of on top of your diet, you either need to plan, like you've got to plan the night before for what you're taking, or take quick things on the go. Like there are some amazing quality protein shakes on the market, and having a protein shake with a piece of fruit is actually a sound meal. If you've run out of time and you're not organized, or if you're out and about and you need to purchase food, make sure you choose something that is high in protein and low in those refined carbohydrates, because it will send you into an afternoon slump. But, if we're talking overall, those things are one-offs. If you've been too busy to pre-prep your food, then of course. But really, if we're talking about having a busy life and how we're going to optimize, planning.
Yeah. Oh, Bex disappeared. I was just going to say, with that too, like planning, I think if we're not planning, then we're also not prioritizing our health and our well-being. So maybe that's the question we need to ask ourselves. Why am I not making the time to plan that in for my next day? Or, I know I've had that conversation with myself several times.
Yeah, like there can be a lot of barriers. And like within my program, there is a lot of work around, we talk about self-sabotaging a lot. And I think it's applicable to us in business as well, right? Like it's not just around food and exercise, but we see self-sabotage showing up everywhere. And, step one is to observe it. I prep everybody that signs up and I say to them, expect self-sabotage. It'll look like you being a 2-year-old. Sometimes you might be lashing out at me. I'm okay with that. But my job is then to gently coach them through and ask inquisitive questions like, okay, well, why has that caused this kind of response? And we can do that for ourselves though, like recognizing self-sabotage is a thing. Sometimes it's linked back to trauma or things from our past. And to get curious and non-judgmental about what we're seeing. And, again, some of those things we can work out for ourselves and go, okay, this is just a moment. But I think, as you know, as a coach, and I'm also a coach in a different way, and I am a coachee, like I am in a program where I receive coaching. Those coaching is invaluable. If you know that you can't solve problems for yourself, step one is always awareness. But then step two is, do I have the skills within my own repertoire to sort this out? And if I don't, who is in my world that can help me with that? And I think sometimes there's such a stigma about feeling like we need to engage or pay someone for that help, because we've got this idea that we can do it ourselves. You can't do it yourself. You know that you can't because you've already tried a stack of times.
Like a million times.
It didn't work out. Stop Google searching. You are occupying mental real estate that as a perimenopausal or menopausal woman, you don't have that mental real estate. Let's just get the help. And you short circuit your results in every area of your life that you just don't have it and you need that support.
I think the funniest thing about that, Beck, too, is when you actually do finally reach out for that support, you just say to yourself every single time, like, why on earth did I not do that sooner?
I know.
It's just so much, like there's just a huge amount lifted from us.
There really is. And look, everybody that's good in any space that they're working in will be happy to have a short discovery call with you to discuss whether or not what you're looking for is what they're offering and whether you're a good fit. So to me, it's risk-free really, in the sense that you get that opportunity to check somebody out, evaluate whether that's a person that you want to partner with. There's so much, most people are putting out so much content around themselves. You can get an understanding if it's a good fit for you, and then have a chat.
Yes, absolutely.
People will tell you if what they're offering is not for you. Very few people are going to sign you up for something that you should never have done in the first place.
Most people are very genuine. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that brings me to the question, Beck, like, how can people get in touch with you? Obviously, we'll put the links in the chat and things like that. But people can come if they want to learn more about what you've talked about today, have a discovery call with you. I think you offer
they can
like that.
There's lots of ways. So you can check out my Instagram and my Facebook pages. So I have two, because one is not enough. My nutrition page I tend to have under Beck DeMoro, and my other page is the Posture Queen. So you can put links to those as well if anybody wants to. And you can go into my link tree, have a look at my free resources. I've got websites as well, so beckdemoro.com, theposturequeen.com. There's blogs on there, there's resource. And if you go and look at those things and you decide that you would like to have a conversation about working together, you can book a discovery call with me. And I also have my free masterclass, which Belinda has already listened to. I'm delivering that kind of fortnightly at the moment. So you can come and sign up. It's no obligations, it's just more of what I've shared in this context, a little bit more specific around diet and exercise for women over 40, and especially around weight loss and hormonal resetting, come and join in the masterclass.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
link to sign up, the link to sign up will be everywhere in any of those portals.
Yeah,
And
we'll make sure
yeah,
we pop that out there for everyone as well. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you so much, Beck, for coming and chatting with us today. It's been absolutely a wealth of knowledge. My goodness. I mean, I know, as you've often said, you know, a lot of it is maybe some things we already know, but we're just not doing, and we just need that. You know, I think sometimes there's that encouragement, that inspiration, and it can be just the right moment when someone might have heard that today and gone, yeah, I did know that, but you know what, now it's time for me. So yeah, I think that's really, really valuable. And if everyone just takes away, you know, thinks about one thing they can take away from
totally.
today, one small thing that you can implement. You know, it's not about making massive big changes all at once, and I think Beck did mention that as well. So one small thing to you know, help you go into your businesses and really be that best version of yourself, for yourself, and for also your team, your staff, your families, everyone really. So yeah, thanks again, Beck, and I will pop all of Beck's amazing details in the chat for you so that you can connect with her more if you would like to do that. And I'd love to also welcome everyone who is interested into your lounge. And I'll pop the link there as well for all women in business wanting to collaborate and support one another. So that is really all for today. So thanks everyone for listening and tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
See ya.